quite an exclusive, haven't they?
They've spoken to his lawyer, William Taylor, who tells the paper Dominique Strauss-Kahn will not be accepting guilt or pleading guilty to anything. That means there'll be no plea bargain. And of course that means, now that prosecutors in New York say that they will not be dropping the charges, that it will definitely be going to trial.
And the phone hacking story, all sorts of, it's all over the British papers, all over the international papers as well. Pressure increasing on the bosses as well of News International.
Yep, let's have a quick look all around the British papers today. It's on every front page, as you might imagine. The Guardian has the day the Prime Minister was forced to act on phone hacking. Daily Telegraph, families of war dead hacked. Of course, this is the news that apparently the families of British soldiers killed in Iraq and Afghanistan were hacked by the News of the World. It's the Daily Mail's headline says even war widows on hackers' hit list again today. And even Murdoch's very own Times can't avoid it today. They did manage to avoid it completely yesterday, despite the other front pages. But today they've got Parliament puts press and police in the dock over hacking scandal. So they've obviously decided they can't put their fingers in their ears and hum for very much longer. Let's look at the Independent in a little bit more detail. Their front page has got Murdoch Empire in crisis, which kind of points out why this is so important internationally, because of course Rupert Murdoch owns a lot of American newspapers as well as British ones. The value of his news corporation has already lost £600 million after advertisers started pulling out of advertising in the News of the World, and the shares have plummeted. That boycott, advertising boycott, the Independent suggests could extend itself to Murdoch's other titles in America and around the world if this extremely bad publicity gets very much worse. Let's have a look also at the Telegraph's editorial today. This is about the consequences of this for British domestic politics, and it's really very strongly worded, especially for a paper that has mostly backed David Cameron to the hilt ever since he became Conservative Party leader. Today, it says, the series of disgusting revelations concerning his friends and associates at News International has permanently damaged his reputation, and the Prime Minister is damaged goods. The paper points out that Cameron is not just a political ally of News International Chief Executive, former News of the World editor Rebecca Brooks. They are friends. They live nearby in Oxfordshire. They're often seen going out to parties together and so on. And this is what the paper really lays into. They also point out, of course, he employed former News of the World editor Andy Coulson, under whom a lot of this phone hacking took place, as his Director of Communications. He knew about a lot of these allegations that we're only just finding out about now. The Telegraph says David Cameron knew about them before he employed Andy Coulson. So this is a catastrophic error of judgments. The Telegraph says that it's brought shame on the country, and Mr Cameron has a lot of explaining to do. The paper also says Rupert Murdoch must take ultimate responsibility, much as the Independent does also. They say he's not a fit and proper person to own any British publicly owned company, much less Sky B, which is one of Europe's biggest broadcasters. We're, of course, awaiting a government decision on whether or not Murdoch will be allowed to take over the 61% of it that he doesn't already own, which we were expecting that to be approved this week, but now, of course, it's all up in the air. And the Telegraph says that not only should he not be allowed to take over Sky B, the media organisation he owns should be forcibly broken up by the government.
Strong stuff. Straight on to the Washington Post. Completely different story. US government's treatment of a terrorist suspect.
Yes, this has caused a massive row in the US, actually. It's the case of Ahmed Abdulkadir Warame, who's accused of conspiring with al-Qaeda in Yemen and offering their militants training. He's a Somali terrorist suspect. Now, he was detained on a US Navy vessel in international waters and interrogated on that boat for 2 months without access to a lawyer. Now he's been sent to New York for trial. Human rights groups, of course, are furious about this, saying it's a breach of the Geneva Convention that the US administration interrogated him in international waters, that is to say, beyond the jurisdiction of international law, with no lawyer for 2 months. Republicans are also unhappy about this case because they say that he shouldn't now be being tried in New York in an ordinary civil court for terrorist offences. The Obama administration here is trying not only to avoid international law, but also the ruling passed by Congress, which said that the terrorist suspects of Guantanamo Bay shouldn't be tried in an ordinary American criminal court. So they've managed to upset people both on the left and on the right with this quite shocking case.
Feels like everyone's upset this morning after today's newspaper review. Elena, thank you very much.
Yes.
Elena looking through the international papers today on France 24. Headlines then, new